From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
Yes, welcome into episode 47 of the 301 Show. Very happy Thanksgiving to everyone watching this. And if you're not American and this isn't Thanksgiving for you, happy Friday. But we have a great episode on tap here for you today. The Twins have a potential signing candidate for this offseason if they don't continue their teardown. The Wild continue to be an absolute wagon here. And the Vikings are whatever the opposite of a wagon is that they and the Wild are headed in opposite directions. So all of that and more here on episode 47 of the 301 Show. All right, moving on now to target field talkers. We've got the coaching staff finalized. I said we would bring that up in the next episode last time, and we'll go over that here. We also have a MLB executives predicted a couple things this offseason, and the Twins were brought up once in that survey. And then the final report, again, like I mentioned, is a pitching option that could be available for the Twins if they're actually going out to try to sign somebody. But we'll start with the coaching staff here. So Mark Hallberg is the bench coach. Keith Beauregard is the hitting coach. Pete Mackey stayed on as the pitching coach. He's been the pitching coach the last few years. Then Grady Sizemore is the first base coach. LaTroy Hawkins is the bullpen coach, and Ron Gardenhire's son, Toby Gardenhire, is the major league field coordinator, which I'm not entirely sure what that actually means. But the two that I am the most excited for this coaching staff here is obviously Pete Mackey staying on as the pitching coach. I do think he is a fantastic option as a pitching coach here in Minnesota. I think he has proven that he is a good coach with his track record thus far with this pitching staff. Now, it might not look like it this upcoming season, but I feel like mostly because of how few options that they have, or they're going to have this upcoming season, especially if they trade away a Joe Ryan or a Pablo Lopez, or both, I guess. But I do think that he, no matter who is on his pitching staff, he's going to make the most of what he has to work with. The second coaching staff hire that I am excited for is Grady Sizemore, and he was a former player. He is listed as the first base coach. They help out with a lot more than just coaching first base, but I do think that it will be great in that locker room, because the biggest thing for the Twins the last couple years has been young guys like flaming out, like having very, very good rookie seasons or parts of rookie seasons, and then not being able to take that next step forward. And there are some times where that is just a sophomore slump, and that is other teams have film on you now and are able to pitch to your weaknesses. But it seems to be an extreme for the Twins, and not just the sophomore slump. It's not just that first year after the rookie season. And I think Grady Sizemore, having been a former player here and a former player recently, I think that having a guy like that in the clubhouse is going to help the young guys a lot, because he's going to be able to go over those, help with that mindset and be able to just help them develop even further and help them with the I guess taking that next step forward. I think Toby Gardenhire might be able to help with that a little bit. And some people are excited for that because he is the son of Ron Gardenhire. But I think the better, the more important thing for him is he was he's been coaching in the Twins minor league system for a while, so he knows a lot of these guys. A lot of the young guys that have come up through the Twins system. So I think that is the best option for him to be able to make a difference here on this team. So Pete Mackey and Grady Sizemore are my two favorite coaches, of the two coaches I think I like the best on this staff. And then Toby Gardenhire is up there too for that reason that I said. But the MLB executives predicting the offseason, again, this was talked about with there was a few questions on here. And again, it was just trying to predict where people would go. And they talked about Tariq Skubal, the Tigers pitcher, getting traded. And the question right after that was, who is the top trade candidate of the winter not named Tariq Skubal? And again, so they could choose anybody that's in the MLB as a top candidate of the winter, trade candidate of the winter. So the votes were very spread out. It's not a, do you think Skubal will get traded, yes or no? And there's only two options. So the votes were very spread out here. But Joe Ryan was tied for first. He did get 2 votes for the top trade candidate. And there was one executive, again, they remained anonymous, but there was one executive that said the Twins were in the trade market over the summer, testing the waters on Ryan. I think that leads to him getting moved this winter. So one of those two that said, maybe it wasn't even one of those two, and they just thought somebody else was a top trade candidate. But that's what one anonymous executive said about Joe Ryan. But there was a Fanside's pitching report here. This comes from Christopher Klein. He said that Zach Gallen is an option, a cheaper option for the Twins to go out and sign this offseason. And his quote was, "This team isn't looking to spend, but if Minnesota decides to stay feisty, Zach Gallen seems like an appropriate gamble." And that is Gallen coming off a season with the Diamondbacks in Arizona where he went 13-15. He had a 4.83 ERA, 175 strikeouts, a 1.26 whip in 192 innings pitched. That's just a couple of years ago in 2023, he was third in Cy Young Award voting. So he has taken a step back from that peak level. But again, it seems like Minnesota, just in general, as a sports community, will get the best out of veterans like that. So I don't see him signing here just with the state of the Pohlads, but I wouldn't be angry about that if it did happen. But again, I really don't think that is going to happen. As for predictions, I didn't have any come off the board here. this week for target field talkers. 3 going on the board. 2 of them about Zach Gallen. And I realize I mistyped this, one of them, my third one, so I will make that adjustment on my sheet. I can't make it on the graphic right now, but 3 here. Twins will not sign Zach Gallen before February 1st. So I think it's going to be, if he does, it's going to be he's still sitting out there, and his price point is lowered significantly. So, and February 1st is a lot closer to the start of spring training. So I think that he will be, again, sitting in free agency for a while. So I said, second prediction is Zach Gallen's ERA is north of 4.15 in 2026. So I think he's going to have a little bit of a better ERA, but still not great in 2026. He's not going to be an ace, basically. He's going to be a 4 or a 5 starter at this point. And then I said opening day here. They play on the road in opening day. So I meant to type home opener. So this again, graphic is wrong. So the home opener attendance is less than 25,000. So I think people are just mad at the poll ads at this point and are going to do a lot of their talking with their wallets at this point and not show up to the home opener. All right, moving on to the Wolves' den here. The Wolves have struggled this last week. They beat the Washington Wizards to get up to 10 wins on the year. They're at one. They won that game 120 to 109. The Naz Reid did have a good game that game, really good game that game. He put up 28 points on 11 of 21 shooting. He had 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and a block in that game. Then they sucked after that, quite frankly. The Wolves traveled to Phoenix, and they were up on the Suns 113 to 105 with 51.7 seconds left in the game, and proceeded to score 0 more points the rest of the way, while the Suns won 114 to 113. So the Suns put up 9 points in the last 51.7 seconds, while the Wolves put up 0. Another big story out of that game is Ant. He did put up 41 points on 14 of 24 shooting, with 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and a block. But he also led to 5 turnovers, and that I feel like was also a massive piece of the loss to the Suns here. I just feel like this version of Ant is good, but he's putting up 41. He can put up 41 points in a game, but he also then has 5 turnovers. And in Washington, he only put up 18 points the game before that. So he has definitely had some clunkers in there too. And for a guy that I think we all thought was going to be a clear-cut MVP candidate, he doesn't seem to be playing up to that potential right now. Don't get me wrong, he's still playing well in games, really well in games, but not to what we know Ant can do. And yeah, it just seemed like he needed to kind of take control of that game at some point, and he just couldn't. Yeah, I can put up 41 points, staring me in my notes right in my face here, but you can't collapse like that and say, "Oh, but I played well. I put up 41." It's like you also had 5 turnovers, and that's just kind of unacceptable at this point. But they were trying to close the door on that one, and they couldn't. So it was on to the next one in Sacramento against the Kings. And the Wolves take the lead and have the lead 99-91 with 2 minutes and 50 seconds left in regulation, and they end up losing 117-112 in overtime. So they just, again, 2 back-to-back games. The Suns are better, I think, this year than some people thought after trading Kevin Durant and not being well with him last year. But again, against 2 teams that I think people thought the Wolves were going to do, or at least I thought that the Wolves were going to do better than. And the Kings just aren't a good team either. You blow leads late to them. And those are the games that are going to come back to bite you in the butt at the end of the season. And I just don't know, like, that those might be like last year they were 6th in the Western Conference, and if they had won one more game they would have been hosting a playoff series with the 4 seed. And there was a game last year where they blew a lead late to Milwaukee, and they were up by like 25 points in the fourth quarter, and Milwaukee came back and won. And I'm going to look at these 2 games at the end of the year. If they don't get a home playoff series, or if they're in the play-in or something like that, that you're going to look back at these 2 games and say, if you just closed it out, if you just made one more basket in either of those games, that makes the world of difference at the end of the season. And yes, we're early, and it seems like a lot of people think the games at the end of the year matter more, which they do matter a lot, but they matter just as much as the games at the beginning of the year. And these last 2 results suck, and they're brutal to live with. And something's gotta go different with that, and they gotta improve the final few minutes time, like the clutch time situations. But they also then traveled to Oklahoma City to play the Thunder, and lost 113-105. Again, Ant put up 31 points in that game, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander put up 40 points on 12 of 19 shooting, with 6 rebounds and 6 assists and 3 steals. If we look ahead to the next few games, they have 2 home games. They play the Celtics at home on November 29th. It's this Saturday at 4 p.m. Then they play the Spurs at 6 p.m. at home on Sunday the 30th. And then they play in New Orleans at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 2nd. As for the odds makers, this was from a few days ago, so they might have shifted a little bit since then, but the current odds are the Wolves have a 25-1 odds to win the title, 16-1 odds to win the conference, and 60-1 odds to win the division. As for the MVP, Ant is 200-1 odds to win the MVP, and Julius Randle is 1,000-1 odds to win the MVP. And with the way they're playing, that all seems about right at this point. And it might get worse if they continue to not close out games here at the end. But as for some good news here, the Lynx, in a trade with the Chicago Sky, acquired their pick a while ago. So I believe it was last off season, and the that pick from the Sky ended up being a lottery pick, and the Lynx now have the 2nd overall pick in the 2026 WNBA Draft. Now, I do think the Lynx, looking at their roster, they do need a big. They need a center or a forward. Dallas does too. Dallas is playing or is picking in the one slot. So I think that there's two players that are either a center or a forward / center that could be taken with those top two picks, and the Lynx would have to settle for whichever one maybe settle is the wrong word, but the Lynx are kind of at the mercy of Dallas at this point, because Dallas needs the same thing as the Lynx do, and they are the only team picking ahead of them. But again, that's the good news, that there are two options, and there's only one team drafting ahead of them, and they're guaranteed one of those two players. And those two players are Lauren Betts and Awa Pham. Those are the top two. From everything that I've seen, those are the top two choices in the WNBA draft. Which that WNBA draft is Monday, April 13th, 2026. So mid-April, we should be knowing. And the Lynx might trade out of that pick too. That's a very real possibility as well. Or they could just stick and pick one of those two. But predictions here, I had two come off the board, went 1 for 2. I said the Wolves will win the next 3 games. They won one of those games and then lost the next 2. And then I said Ant drops 40 plus in at least one game before December 15th. He dropped 40 plus a couple of times. That brings my total up to 34 total correct out of 111 total predicted for 31%. 3 coming on the board here. I said that the Lynx draft Lauren Betts, Awa Pham, or AZ Fudd out of UConn. I think the Wolves win both of the weekend home games. The 2 coming up here against the Celtics and the Spurs. I think the Spurs are the bigger task at this point, because the Celtics don't have Jason Tatum. And then my final prediction is that Naz Reid puts up 20-plus points in at least one of the next 3 games. So that Boston game, that San Antonio game, or in New Orleans against the Pelicans. Naz Reid will score at least 20 points. All right, moving on now to the Nordic Report. The Vikings are now 4-7 on the season. They dropped to 2-2 in the division. They are 2-4 in the conference. They are now the NFC Conference 12 seed, as well as remaining dead last in the NFC North. I don't see them climbing out of that spot in the division at all this year. The offense is averaging 282.6 yards per game, which is 28th in the NFL. The points for per game, which include a couple of defensive touchdowns, are 20.4 points per game, which is 25th. On third down, they are 40 of 130 for 30.8%. That is 31st in the league. On fourth down, they are 8 of 15, which is 53.3%. That is tied for 16th. Defense is giving up 314.8 yards per game, which is 11th fewest in the NFL. Points against per game is 23.2, which is 18th. On third down, the defense is stopping them 94 out of 150 opportunities for 62.7% conversion rate. That is 18th in the NFL. Fourth down is 3 of 11. They had one really, really bad game. I believe it was the Eagles game. Maybe not the Eagles. I can't remember exactly. It was one really, really bad game that kind of sunk this percentage. That is 27.3%, which is 30th. The special teams unit Will Reichert is 91.3%. He's still just the 2 misses, which one of them definitely hit a camera wire. The other one kind of maybe hit a camera wire. The footage is not 100% clear on that. So he's 21 of 23. That is 7th in the NFL. His long is still the 62-yarder against Cincinnati, which is 5th. The PATs, he is still a perfect 19 of 19. Hasn't had a chance to attempt one in the last couple games. But, the Vikings lose to the Packers 23-6 in Green Bay this last Sunday. It wasn't really even a game. JJ McCarthy went 12 of 19 for 87 yards. He did not throw a touchdown and got intercepted twice while taking 5 sacks. His QBR was 17.9. His passer rating was 34.2. So just not a great day out of McCarthy again. Jordan Mason had 8 carries for 42 yards. Jones had 9 carries for 41 yards. Jefferson had 4 receptions for 48. TJ Hawkinson had 4 receptions for 19 yards. And Jordan Addison put in a very, very nice cardio day, being targeted once and not making a catch. Ryan Wright, I thought, had a pretty good day. He had 4 punts for 222 yards. Again, he stuck one close to, I can't remember exactly where it got marked down, but he had some very nice punts in Green Bay here. Then Miles Price, again, complete opposite end of the special teams results spectrum. Miles Price fumbled a punt that set the Packers up for one of their touchdowns in very short field, which again, it just hit him too. Like, it wasn't going to catch it. And that's where I'm like, as a punt returner, you're supposed to get away from the ball if you're not going to catch it, and just let it roll and take a bad bounce if that so be it. But at least you have the ball still. So that was a bad punt return by him, which again, he has been hit or miss this year. There's times where he'll rip off a 60-yard either kick return or punt return, and there's other times where it happens like this, and he is basically just like blocked into the ball. But again, just if you're not going to actually return it and you're not calling for a fair catch, get away from it. Get away from the ball. But yeah, Jordan Love, I think he had a pretty good day, but not like a great day. He went 14 of 21, 137 yards. Didn't throw a touchdown. Didn't throw a pick though. Took 1 sack. His QBR was 76.1. His passer rating was 85.2. Again, it's just making plays when he needed to. Emmanuel Wilson, the running back with Jacobs out, had 28 carries for 107 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. So again, he did really well. That's where the Vikings defense struggled, was in the run game. Watson had 5 receptions for 49 yards. He was their leading receiver. And then Micah Parsons got two sacks on 2 of the 5 sacks on JJ McCarthy, which again, Micah Parsons is really good. So take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, and Darisaw struggled against Micah Parsons. He did not play well. And yeah, I just don't think that this game was really in question at all. It just, from start to finish, it did not feel like the Vikings were all there. And it just seemed like the Packers were there from start to finish, and just was not really nervous about this game at all. And when I am nervous, it usually means that the Vikings have a chance to win. And just from the set, I just was not nervous about this game at all, because they just did not look good whatsoever. So yeah, if we look ahead here, this next week. It is a Darnold revenge game. The Vikings are traveling to Seattle. It will be a 3:05 kickoff Central Time on Sunday, November 30th. Darnold is playing like an MVP candidate at this point. His connection with JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, is absolutely unreal. It is so fun to watch. Just as a football fan, don't know how fun it'll be to watch this Sunday. But again, it is just really, really fun to watch. And I think the league is better when players and teams are having seasons like this. The Vikings are 7-12 all time against the Seattle Seahawks. They are 3-9 in Seattle, so most of their games have actually come on the road against the Seahawks. The Seahawks this game are 11.5 point favorites in Seattle here. And that is also likely because of how bad McCarthy has been playing recently, and also the fact that he is in concussion protocol right now and likely will not play in this game in Seattle. He is also allowing now Max Brosmer to take reps with the first team. And so if Max Brosmer does start against the Vikings, against the Seahawks, this will be the third starting quarterback that the Vikings have had this year. And a lot of that, or all of it, due to injury. The changes due to injury, because there was a report that came out, and I am now realizing I did not write down who it was from, so I apologize for that. But there was a report that said the Vikings coaching staff was not planning on not playing McCarthy the rest of the season after he got hurt the first time, because he was not ready for NFL action, and that Carson Wentz was planned. They planned on Carson Wentz being the starter the rest of the season if his arm basically just did not fall off, and that can be kind of verified there by the fact that he. The KOC has said that they're having to work on the throwing mechanics with McCarthy, and that just doesn't seem to be something that you do in season and something that you do if you are planning on playing him again, because that takes more than just a week to fix. That takes an off season. Like, that should be something that gets fixed this off season. But if they weren't planning on playing him the rest of the season, we'll start right now, and we'll start building and taking those, actually having reps to change that, those throwing mechanics. I also think too that there are, because of that report there are more talks on a different quarterback starting week 1 of 2026. And there have been couple names brought up, like Aaron Rodgers. I think we mentioned it on this show a few weeks ago. Aaron Rodgers is an option this year. Again, part of that depends on if Rodgers is going to play next season too. That's a massive piece of that puzzle. I also think that trading for Mac Jones is an option from the 49ers, because they'll have that. He's got one more year left on his deal. And at this point, if the throwing mechanics are that bad that they're working on it midseason, I think that having a guy come in for one more year is probably the best option at this point if you actually want McCarthy to succeed long term. And I think that he would actually benefit from some time where he can actually practice and not just sit in on meetings like he did last season with Darnold. Like Darnold, I think was Darnold. I just forgot what I was going to say. But Yeah, no, like last year, again, this is what I was going to say, is last year, again, sitting in on those meetings definitely helps. And don't get me wrong, it does, but actually getting reps is what is going to help young quarterbacks and just young players in general is what's going to help them the most. So him not having those reps last year was a massive detriment to his development. And I think we're seeing it play out now. I think that is a thing that needs to happen. I think he needs to get more reps in practice too, not just in games, because practice they're not going full speed 100% of the time, and in games they are. There's 11 guys on the other side of the football that want to take his head off, and I think just having a season of practice is going to be a lot very beneficial for McCarthy. And so that could be where you see a guy like Mac Jones, or you see a guy like Aaron Rodgers come in for 1 year for McCarthy. So yeah. As for predictions, had 4 come off the board this week. I said that Justin Jefferson will score a touchdown versus the Packers. Nobody scored a touchdown against the Packers. I said this one should have come off a couple weeks ago, but I said JJ McCarthy will start at least 5 games in the 2025 regular season. That is true. I said Packers cover the 6.5 point spread. That was correct. And the Packers defense has multiple interceptions. So that brings the totals up to 42 total correct out of 107 total predicted for 39% correct. 3 coming on the board here. Said that the Seahawks cover the 11.5 point spread, so they win by 12 or more points. Said the Darnold will throw for 300 yards or more against the Vikings, and the Seahawks will force 2 turnovers. So again, not necessarily the defense, could be on special teams too, but the Seahawks will force 2 turnovers, and again, either interceptions or fumbles. All right, now moving on to the final team segment here of the episode, the Rinkside Rundown. We will start here with the Minnesota Frost. The Frost are 0-1 on the season. They lose to the Toronto Scepters 2-1. Matty Rooney stopped 17 of 19 shots. Kirk, the Scepters goalie, stopped 30 of 31 shots. Kendall Coyne Schofield, the only Frost player to beat Kirk there. The Frost play 2 games in the next week. They play in Seattle against the Torrent on Friday, November 28th, which is the day I am recording this, and the day that I am going to upload this to. They play at 3 p.m. Central Time. Then they play in Ottawa against the Charge at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 2nd. So again, the banner got raised on last Friday, and the Frost lose 2-1. But again, it is a long season for them. I did think they played pretty well, but they just could not pull it out in the end. So if we move on here to the Wild part of this, I'll leave the Frost discussion for when they actually have more games played and more data points to go over here. So the Wild here are an absolute wagon at this point. 13-7-4, 30 points. They're 3rd in the Central, 3rd in the West. They are in their last 12 games 10-1-1. They have points in each of their last 9 games. And their goals for per game tied for 22nd at 2.92. Their goals against is 2.79, which is tied for 10th. Shutouts, they have 5, that leads the NHL with Gustavsson and Wally combining for 5 shutouts. The power play is operating at 25.3%, which is tied for 4th. The penalty kill is 77.6%, which is 24th in the NHL. The face-offs percentage is 47.7, 25th. Shots per game is 27.7, is 17th. Shots against is 30 shots even, which is tied for 24th. Gustavsson has improved a lot here. Rough October, but November has been treating him well. He's 7-7-2 on the season. Save percentage is 903, which is tied for 23rd. So we finally got that save percentage back up above 900. Goals against is 2.80, which is tied for 24th, and he has 2 shutouts, which is tied for 2nd in the NHL. As I said, Gustavsson's record is 7-7-2. Wild have 7 regulation losses as a team, so that means Wally has not lost in regulation just yet. He is 6-0-2 on the season. His save percentage leads the NHL at a .935. He has a 1.94 goals against average, which is 2nd in the NHL. He has 3 shutouts, 1 more than the Gustavsson that is tied, or that is standing alone in 1st place. So again, the goaltenders are playing really well, really well here. So yeah, the goaltenders are playing phenomenally here. They're the two that are kind of carrying this team at this point. As for Wally, real quick here, in his last 4 games, he has 4 wins, 3 shutouts, a .978 save percentage, and a 0.75 goals against average. That one game he didn't get a shutout in, he also made 42 out of 45 saves that night, and they won in a shootout. That game being against the Carolina Hurricanes, they won 4-3 in a shootout. Jackson Blake beat him twice, so only 2 players have beaten Wally in the last 4 games. There's only 2 players that have actually scored on him, as Jackson Blake had 2 goals for the Hurricanes. Faber and Zuki both scored in regulation, and then Boldy scored in regulation as well, and he was the only one to score in the shootout. The next game, the Wild played in Pittsburgh. They won 5-0. Gustavsson went 19 for 19. Boldy had 2 goals, 1 assist on 4 shots. Faber had 2 assists in that game. Joel Eriksson-Ek, Marcus Johansson, Kirill all had a goal apiece. Penguins pulled their goalie after Silovos stopped 6 out of 10 shots through just over a period. Got pulled in the second. The Wild then traveled to Winnipeg, where they played the Jets. The Wild would go on to win that game 3-0, as Wally stopped 32 out of 32 shots. Eric Comrie stopped 27 out of 30. That also ended a 9-game winning streak again that the Jets had against the Wild. Kirill, Faber, and Urov scored, Faber's being a shorthanded goal. The Chicago Blackhawks were up next in Chicago the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. The Wild would win 4-3 in overtime. Boldy tied it up in the third, about halfway through the third. He had a goal, 2 assists on 6 shots. And then Kirill had an overtime game-winning goal. There was an iffy penalty call on the Blackhawks there in overtime, but Kirill's shot was an absolute snipe over the Spencer Knight's shoulder. Looked like Eriksson-Ek was screening Spencer Knight out front pretty well too, so that was fantastic to see. Again, Eriksson-Ek just seems to be finding his way to the front of the net like that a ton. But yeah, the Wild have 4 games coming up starting today. They play 2:30 Central Time on Friday, November 28th against the Colorado Avalanche, which will be a fantastic test to see if this is actually somewhat sustainable, which we'll get into that discussion in just a moment here. But Colorado has only lost once in regulation. They have 6 losses on the season, 5 of those being in overtime or a shootout. The Buffalo Sabres are up next tomorrow, as I'm recording this, Saturday, November 29th at 7 p.m. Then they go to Alberta. They do the Alberta Western Canada trip. They're in Edmonton on Tuesday, December 2nd at 8 p.m. and in Calgary at 8 p.m. on Thursday, December 4th. But I do want to bring up, I think that the way the Wild are playing right now is the way they need to play if they actually want to make the playoffs. It's a defensive first team. I don't think they have enough scoring at this point to obviously they have the superstar in Kirill. They have a secondary scorer in Matt Boldy. Those two are tied for points, assists, goals, assists, and points. 14, and 28 on those. So they have those two, but they don't have the depth scoring right now. And they are fantastic in the goaltending. I think again, like I said, that is going to be how they make the playoffs, and that's how they're going to need to play to actually do well here and the rest of this season. But they are the big question is this sustainable? I don't know if it's sustainable at a 9.78 save percentage over 4 games rate that Wally has. I don't think that's sustainable, but I think it is sustainable to be playing pretty close to this well the rest of the season and have them be a defensive first team. And again, like I said, that is how they're going to have to play for them to make the playoffs. And if they want to go on a Stanley Cup run, which I'm not sure they're a good enough team to do yet, but hockey's a weird sport. But if anything like that happens, they are going to need to be defensive first. And I think that'll give them a way better chance to go on a run the rest of this season. So, yeah, this is, again, like I said, they just have to play this way. Goaltenders, rely on your goaltenders. Rely on the 2 guys that are performing night in and night out on a consistent basis, and they're the 2 that are showing up again as of late, showing up night in and night out, and yeah. So the Wild, again, absolute wagon right now. Are back to a divisional spot, and they are, again, there's another stat too that I saw that's by American Thanksgiving, if you are in a playoff spot, of the teams that are in a playoff spot by American Thanksgiving, 75% of those teams end up making the playoffs at the end of the year. So the Wild are in a divisional spot. It's not saying that they'll get that spot that they're in right now at the end of the season, but there is now a good chance that they do get a playoff spot because of that statistic. Yeah. So the Wild, again, continue to roll here, and my predictions continue to roll here too, as another 4 came off the board. I went 3 for 4 on this one too, on Rinkside Rundown. I said the Frost will beat Toronto. They did not. But I said Filip Gustavsson records at least 2 shutouts before January 1st. He has recorded 2 shutouts now. I said that the Wild will get at least 3 points in their next 3 games. They got way more than that. I think they got 6 points. I think they got all 6 points in those 3 games. And then I said Jesper Wallstedt gets another shutout before January 1, which he did. That brings it up to 35 total correct out of 93 total predicted for 38%. The three coming on the board, I got 2 Frost predictions here coming on the board. I said Nicole Hensley will be in net for the Frost first win of the season. Said that the Frost will beat Seattle in their first matchup here later today. And then Kirill gets to 40 goals before Boldy does. Again, they're both tied at 14, so I think Kirill gets 6 more goals here before Boldy gets 6 goals. All right, now welcome into the final segment of today's episode, the Power Ranking segment. If you are new here, the Power Ranking segment is a segment we do at the end of every episode where we take a Minnesota sports topic and rank them from 1 to 10. We have done a bunch of different topics here in Minnesota sports. We've done the top 10 Minnesota sports moments in general, the top 10 villains in Minnesota sports history, and then the top 10 single game performances by Minnesota athletes. So the one we are doing today, the list that we are doing today, which actually, by the way, real quick, send your ideas in. We've taken listener suggestions before. Send those in. Be happy to rank them. Keep them family friendly though. And yeah, so the top 10 list we have today here are the worst trades in Minnesota sports history. So yeah, the worst trades from all of the teams here in Minnesota sports history. Up here at number 10, we have the Rod Carew trade that sent him to the, at the time, Anaheim Angels out in California. Excuse me one sec. All right, sorry about that. But then number 9 here, Wild gave up a first-round pick for Martin Hanzal, and the value just did not seem there for Martin Hanzal, but Chuck Fletcher wanted to set the market and wanted to get Martin Hanzal, and then he was gone at the end of the season, or maybe the year after that. I can't remember exactly. But number 8 is the unique Ngakwe trade. He was gone after half a season, did not last the entire season in Minnesota, and the Wild or the Vikings traded him. So I guess you'd put either. Number 7, again, this is, people forget that this was a trade, but it technically was. It was with the Vegas Golden Knights and the Wild, Alex Tuch going to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for Erik Haula being picked in the expansion draft. So the Wild said, we'll give you Alex Tuch if you take Erik Haula, and Alex Tuch ended up being a fantastic player for the Vegas Golden Knights before he got traded to the Buffalo Sabres. Number 6, again, the Twins now traded what should have been 3-time Cy Young Award winner. Was not 3, but was 2. They traded him to the New York Mets. Whenever you trade a guy like that, you are going to lose the trade. So 3, or the next 5 coming on here. So I pulled this up. And we are going over the 10 worst trades in Minnesota sports history. Number 5 here, again, kind of like the Martin Hanzal one. Maybe Martin Hanzal should have been ranked higher than this, but the Vikings gave up a first-round pick for Sam Bradford, and they ended up going 8-8 that year because Teddy's knee exploded. Number 4, the Timberwolves trading away Kevin Garnett. It was fine what they got back for him, not great, but just fine. But this is up here at number 4. There's definitely worse returns on this list that are ranked lower. But again, this is ranked as high as it is because you traded away the face of the franchise, who I think is still the best player in franchise history, and then continued to suffer for basically 20 straight years after that. So that KG trade comes in at number 4. Number 3, the pick, basically pick swaps that was Ray Allen for Stephon Marbury, getting turned into Ray Allen. Fantastic player. And yeah, then at number 2 here, trading Brent Burns to the San Jose Sharks. Again, awful trade. Brent Burns turned into one of, if not the best defenseman in the league for about a 7 to 10 year span there for a while in San Jose. So Wild definitely should not have done that. And at number 1 here, it is the Herschel Walker trade. Again, the Vikings gave up way too much for Herschel Walker, and that set the Cowboys up to basically rule the 90s, and then Herschel Walker was back on the Cowboys just a few years later because he flamed out with the Vikings. So it was basically after a year and a half, the Vikings had basically just given them 4 first-round picks, a couple of seconds, and a couple of players too, and it all worked out for the Dallas Cowboys. So yeah. All right, thank you for watching episode 47 of the 301 Show. That'll do it for us here today. Again, like this video, lets YouTube know it's a good one. Leave a subscription to the 301 Show YouTube channel here. Also leave a comment down below. Let me know where you think I was right or wrong in this, and then you can also email the show with any questions, comments, or concerns. The email is frozennorth30@gmail.com. You can also find it in the description down below. But we will see you next time for episode 48 of the 301 Show. Peace.